You always hear people say, Yu-Gi-Oh is pay to win. Why even play the game? And while many formats in Yu-Gi-Oh's history can be expensive and sometimes feel alienating, many times that's not the case, and there's almost always a budget solution right around the corner that lets you keep up at the top level. And the most recent structure deck does exactly that. If you guys haven't already seen my video where I take 3 Blue Eye structure decks and about $20 to make a competitive deck, then go check that out, because now we are finally going to take that deck to locals. And it's not just locals we're going to go to. We're going to take it to locals now and then maybe a couple more times over the next few weeks before entering a Yu-Gi-Oh! Regional Championship, which in Toronto is usually about 300 or so players. A pretty big and competitive tournament, but still not the highest tier within Yu-Gi-Oh! So that's why after that tournament of practice and mastering Blue Eyes, we'll then take our brew to YCS Houston. And if we can do all that, we'll prove all the haters wrong, that it is all about skill, not
screw the rules, I have money.
It is day 1 testing of the Blue Eyes deck. I have theoried for a while, built the strategy, and now is my chance to play it IRL for the first time. The goal here is not to win, although that would be nice. It is to learn, see what the problems are with my deck, what I need to fix, and hopefully set me on the right track for success at the end of this goal. Now, if you want to see how this journey pans out, then subscribe to the channel and let me know if you're excited to see how we do the upcoming events, because future videos will tell you guys all about how I did. But with that said, let's go hop into Kaiba's Blue Eyes jet and head over to locals. All right, so we have made it to locals. Today we are playing at New Realm Games, one of the locals that's closest to me. But we had about 18 or so players, I think, today, which meant there were 4 rounds of Swiss and no Top Cut, because I play on weekdays and I don't want to stay there till 4 in the morning. But last, that meant if today we wanted to walk away with prizing, we needed to go either undefeated to win or X1, 3 wins, 1 loss to get some prizing. Now, before I start commentating over my gameplay and decision making, just a reminder that if people make mistakes, it's okay to point it out and to be constructive about what should have been done. This includes any of my own mistakes. So make sure you do so in a respectful manner, never trying to insult somebody, their intelligence, or I guess just be kind, be respectful. Let's be a good community. But okay, let's get into round number 1. All right, so round number 1 begins and I lose the roll, which is okay. You have to expect to lose the roll 50% of the time. You shouldn't be that upset when you lose it. And my opponent just passes. I remember looking at my hand and seeing 2 Impermanences, 2 Nibiru's, a Mausoleum, and I can't recall the 6th card, but all I can tell you, it was not engine. So while my opponent passes, and that's fortunate, their hand being all non-engine as well, my hand is the same thing. So nice and swiftly, we pass back. One of these games, an interesting one where patience is tested and you have to be careful not to play into hand traps because expect a good amount of them. So I pass back to the opponents and they have Toy Box to set 2 cards in their deck. This does tell me that I should at least expect it to be a White Forest variant. Those cards synergize really well with Toy Box, and nothing else besides maybe Magician's Souls or Diabell Star really synergize nearly as well. This Toy Box activation here doesn't give me too much information though. For one, this could mean that my opponent drew this for turn and wanted to set up a 2-turn clock for plays, especially given that I didn't play. This would be a good play on my opponent's part, because let them set 2 cards now, then on the next turn, Toy Box destroyed 2, and would force me to have drawn a playable card in between now and their next turn. Alternatively, they could have a Molcharn Me type card in hand, and they decided not to use Toy Box turn 1 because they didn't want to play a card and turn off their own Fuwa Loss. That's the case, and this means their top deck still could be unknown, so I can't rush too much to kind of figure out what their hand is. At this point, he sets 1 and passes, and to me that feels pretty obvious that that's an Imperm face down. And yeah, this doesn't really give me much more information to whether this Toy Box was a new draw or something else, but we'll press forward and see. I draw for turn and draw True Light. Now, True Light is engine, and it will be good in a grind game. I just have to make sure I get that far, which no guarantee I do. I will have to wait a turn and do nothing. But with Nibiru and Imperm in my hand, I feel somewhat comfortable. I set 3 cards face down and pass, meaning that if the Toy Box was just a long haul play, then it's going to pan out for him. He gets out both the Toy Soldier and the Toy Tank. Here I'm just recalling what it does exactly, but I'm pretty sure on summon, if he controls the Toy Box, it's at a level 4 connected hand. So not wanting to get access to the White Forest Engine or Sylvie, I decided to Imperm this here. Given that he didn't play any White Forest cards last turn, unless you do 1 for turn, he's not going to have any more White Forest Engine. On top of that, if he only has 1 other White Forest card, say he drew Sylvie for turn, then the second Imperm can still swiftly deal with it. Ideally, though, the second Imperm can hold off for any negates, though an Imperm plus Nib can be a good combo. He normal summons the Moltremi Fulas, which could kind of give us information that the toy box wasn't the top deck, and he's abandoning the Fulas strategy. It's some good information to have still. Obviously, Gallant Granite, which has me pondering a bit what it could be, but I immediately decide that it's probably searching a Nibiru. This isn't some Adamantipator deck. And with the Nibiru there, I just have to play around that. It's not a huge deal for Blue Eyes, as long as you know it's there, so I'm chilling. He attacks twice and passes, meaning I'm in a similar spot to now, but I get to use True Light. And as long as it doesn't get ogred, I am all good. Now, in the end phase, I get to decide what I want to set, and I have to remember that there's a good chance that Ash Blossom is coming down on my wishes, given that his hand is probably all non-engine. I decide that it's still fine setting the wishes, as if this gets stopped, then I can just go True Light, set the roar summon Blue Eyes, summon Tyrant, attack both monsters, and reset Imperm. And that was good enough in value that I wasn't going to sweat losing the card to Ash Blossom, especially given that I had multiple Nibirus in hand. For turn, I drew the Roar, so that means now I don't actually have to search it off True Light. Instead, I can get a trap. So first things first, I want to just see if he'll interact with the True Light again. So I decide to set from deck. It does give away some of my potential options for the rest of the turn, but I feel like I'm never using the Revive effect here. And the Majesty's a good thing no matter what, as it will stop any good engine my opponent top decks. Now, I started Dragon Shrine here. This is the card I drew the turn before, and I held off using because I wasn't sure what I wanted to send. Here I send my Kaiser Seahorse, and I kind of realized there is something kind of wrong with this. And we talked about it in the deck profile already. This is when I realized, wait, Kaiser Seahorse only works if it's sent from field to grave. So this whole Dragon Shrine, send Seahorse, send Maiden play doesn't actually work. So now I'm able to do that. My opponent's gracious enough to go back. Now, locals, we don't shark. We let each other go back pretty frequently. It's comfortable, casual gameplay for the sake of learning, right? And I still learned. So I send Jet instead. Either way, though, I am still now going to keep pushing. I use Wishes and I discard the Mausoleum, deciding I'm never going to need to actually normal summon, given I don't have any plays right now. Ash was predictable, but I still have Blue Eyes, so it's okay. The second Blue Eyes out of my deck does mean my Majesty pops too. I didn't want to bring back from grave. I think that makes a fair bit of sense. And then, as I said, just we get to do the Wishes play to attach the Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate, and then I get to go attacking. And I equip the Blue Eyes Ultimate, go into Tyrant, and then it's time to go into the battle phase. Now, Toy Box does the effect lets him destroy his set card in order to blow up a monster that attacks. If he does that to the Tyrant Dragon, then Jet Dragon will revive, still clearing the field. And given that I think his face down card is an impermanence, I don't mind if he blows it up, because that means the Toy Box has to trade for infinite impermanence, just the Jet Dragon still clear the field. All this really does is prevent me from resetting impermanence and dealing an extra bit of damage. And my opponent can't impermanence the Tyrant Dragon, because Tyrant, if you all forgot, and maybe many people do, is unaffected by trap cards. So very cool here. My opponent's now in a weird spot where they're already behind with an engineless sort of hand trying to deal with this. And yeah, they can't deal with it. You can see my opponent tries impriming there, and I quickly remind him, yeah, that doesn't work. So we reset it, and he has to debate here again. This is what's worth doing. Let this go through or Toy Box. Besides the Toy Box, which I guess I agree with, I revive Toy Box, or revive the Jet now back. I can attack the Toy Soldier, and then Jet Dragon bounce the Granite, leaving him essentially down to nothing. And without having any engine in his hand from before, you don't have to top deck it into the Majesty. Still have the Imperm from last turn as well. Still have Nibiru from last turn. And now I feel pretty comfortable, because even beyond all that, I have the True Light to give me a constant flow of resources. And here we can see Toy Box reset 2 cards. Let's give it a little bit of oomph, but really won't do too much. It's 2 more cards again, and passes straight over. But this True Light is going to be pretty nasty here. And now, importantly, because Wishes is no longer in the graveyard, True Light can now set another Wishes. Although there is an argument to instead of setting Ultimate Fusion, because on my turn I can set Wishes, and alternatively, where if I set Ultimate Fusion on his turn, I cannot use it. Well, I guess Wishes would have no spell targets left, so that'd be a problem. Still in the end phase, I managed to pop the 2 new sets, and my opponent just concedes, knowing that this game is over. And another Tyrant Dragon will eventually come down as well, that further turns the recycle cards. I mean, my opponent was dead. There was nothing more that really had to be done. All right, on to game number 2. And this game, I'm pretty sure I drew a pretty extensive engine hand containing Sage, Maiden, and Wishes. So I felt pretty good that this last game wouldn't start the same way the last one did. My opponent starts with Toy Box again, so now we get to see if any White Forest cards come down. However, my opponent just sets 2 more cards face down and passes. So their end is similar to last time, which is definitely unfortunate for them. Now, in general, playing into back row, you want to play with as few cards as possible. That way you keep your hand a mystery. If your opponent doesn't know what to play around, then it becomes way harder for them to duel. Obviously, it's about trying to make value first. You can see here I debate using the Maiden or the Wishes now, but instead I do True Light as well. I go Spirit first to try and base as many interactions as possible before I commit more cards out of my hand. Add Mausoleum, nothing else gets used onto the Spirit here. And then I go with Wishes next, because if it's Ashed or gets Judgmented, I'd rather that happens on the Wishes, because I already have the Maiden. And I discard True Light because, again, I have Maiden, and it makes more sense just economically for card value. If I didn't have Follow-Up, though, I'd consider keeping something else, because given that my opponent can't play much, if I wanted to get into a grind game, then making sure True Light hits the field, even if it's a turn slow, is important. But here, being comfortable with having enough engine cards to last a while, I'd chill. And the Wishes resolves, so I get matched to here without my opponent having good cards in hand to top deck or whatever. Or without having engine, they need a top deck engine. Matched, you could deal with most cards in top decks, including if it's like a Witch or Deception. Say if it's an Azamina White Forest deck, then that'll handle it by itself. A normal Mausoleum, normal Sage, again, just keep building up the cards I have. And I get a Maiden here. Just another one for follow-up, because I felt like I didn't need more disruption. I, again, wanted to just play the grind game as much as possible. And yeah, I feel like this was more than enough. Now, I don't commit the Maiden here for playing. I'm just, again, still trying to test for disruptions, and I know that I can summon the Blue Eyes again later on to deal with the, or what's it called, to trigger the Maiden to revive. Again, not that I really even need it. What I'm kind of just testing for here is to see if there's any interaction points, any Nibiru's that he deems necessary. And because I feel so commanding of a position right now, like I'm going to be in the grind game, I'm going to be exactly what the Blue Eyes deck wants to be. I choose to not go for game, instead just going for a lot of damage as well as follow-up, putting myself in an unlosable position in my opinion. So here I can go Spirit Dragon, Tyrant also helps. I go Maiden. Now getting the Jet Dragon out was important because now I can't get Ghost Dragon on True Light, because that's one of the ways I lose. I revive the Blue Eyes on True Light. Honestly, maybe I should have held off in this a little longer to play around Nib, but someone I kind of decided it probably wasn't there. As well as for one thing, it's going to be a bit harder for me to go to game, as with the Toy Box being able to destroy his own cards, he can float a bit. If I put the Jet in grave, then his Toy Box can destroy something. However, that means then Jet doesn't kind of float back. So I decided to just go for Battle Phase and attack with everything before Toy Box can pop. He still uses the Toy Box to pop his own cards. The Toy Soldier revives back from some search. This does mean that Sylvie's coming down as some sort of follow-up next turn, but I'm really not too concerned. And then I get to attack everything, and then I get to make his 2 just synchro. Now, Double Spirit here is very strong. Obviously, I go into the Ultimate Spirit, I can go into Moonlight, or I can play for follow-up with Azure Eyes. But the Spirit as well also protects from graveyard effects, which in some cases can be chainlocked by my opponents, but not always. Ona starts off with a Black Witch, sending the Toy Tank, so those both trigger out, and he does chain blocks, the Spirit doesn't get to do anything. That Witch is pretty clearly the top deck in my opinion, as he would have definitely led with that last turn if he had that plus Toy Box. If you know he had Toy Box. He goes Tribute the LZ Azamina, which does kind of prove that's what he had, or that's what he had last turn. Use the Majesty to pop the Deception, meaning all he has is his White Forest stuff here, which I am really not too concerned about. He grabs the White Forest trap card at this point. That means that may mean a Tails or something that's already there, or they don't need the engine. So already has the second LZ Azamina in hand. That's something you always see in every deck. And I could say bounce to try and clear the field removal, but I'm not worried. Yes, Silvera can book all my monsters, but the thing is with a lot of decks, right? We say that attack points and defense points don't matter in Yu-Gi-Oh, but in reality, they do. And you can see, you're going to watch this here. My opponent's going to book my field, and I kind of say, like, I could have maybe tried stopping this, but I almost don't care. Now my opponent has to deal with 3 giant defensive monsters by follow-up. It's just not really possible for them, and they can't like do anything with this LZ search, right? Like they can search another Witch, or use that search Deception, or use that get Hallowed. Is Hallowed even a viable target off that? I don't remember, but if it is, it didn't have much. So gets the Sinful Spoils White Forest spell card. That's a revive with Tank. I think he revives the wrong card here, so it may have to go back in a second. Yeah, so instead decides to swap out for the LZ. The LZ giving the ability to fuse for Mew. Mew can search again, but again, like I've already gone through so many Sinful Spoil cards, it doesn't really matter. I ashed this because I decided there's nothing else to ash. Maybe that's a mistake, actually. I'm trying to think what else the Mew can search here. I guess, oh, I wanted stop the wanted draw, because the wanted draw can get access to into more engine, more tuners maybe. And yeah, so that's what I did. And the wanted obviously can get a free witch, so if I'm going to stop the wanted, I may as well stop the Mew. But there's also an argument to me holding the Ash to deal with the Tails on the next turn, the trap card. That card is obviously very strong, but yeah, that's maybe contentious. Still, Chaos Angel gets to banish the Spirit Dragon. True, one's gone. And now Chaos Angel attacks, then Jet Dragon comes back. So really, you can only kill one monster in this position. And oh yeah, Chaos Angel is light dark. How am I gonna pop it? Well, Tyrant Dragon beats it. Tyrant Dragon reset Majesty, just outed alone. Second Spirit dies, Jet Dragon comes back. I'm still chilling. I still have the True Light set in the end phase. I still have cards in hand. Sets one face down, and then yeah, resets with Toy Box and calls it a turn. But it may look like this game is close, but in reality, I just have so much. Now, True Light in the end phase, bring back 2 monsters. I start off my turn with several giant beat sticks that opponent can't deal with. And yes, the Chaos Angel is a problem that I can't necessarily beat like immediately. It's not too big a deal. And furthermore, the other out to it is Ultimate Fusion if you're playing that, and I do. So I can just do that. So instead I send Blue Eyes from deck to grave, Mausoleum, and then get to revive with Maiden. Now, because I don't have wishes in grave, I used it last turn. I can also reset wishes off of True Light here, discard a card, and then I get to go Ultimate Fusion. That pops the Chaos Angel. So that's why I go for game as well. And given that I have done damage last turn, maybe that's what I want to do. I think my opponent's at 4,200 at this point. Still though, not concerned. Oh, I drew Ultimate Fusion. I drew Ultimate Fusion for turn. I forgot. Okay. Yeah, this shouldn't be enough. Recycle the Spirit, go Tyrant, pop the Chaos Angel. Yep, spell effect. Chaos Angel hits the grave. And now we're in like the same predicament as last time. And with the Jet Dragon, the Toy Box can't stop anything. There's a Tails that did some revive and synchro, but it's this point, game is over. And now I get to revive Blue Eyes back, go into Spirit again. And I probably should have not flipped up until after I synchroed. Or, yeah, I mean, in general, it's what I should have done first. Go Spirit first, and then Spirit for the Ultimate Spirit. Just to have an Omni to get up into the back row. I don't remember if that's what I did, but it's what I should have done. Still obviously learning the deck. Yeah, I do it here. I should have done this before flipping up in case he had a way to summon multiple monsters and go for the Book of Moon, the Silvera on my turn. Yeah, so now I have an answer to the trap card. True Light gets the revive because I already had the Ultimate Fusion. I think Azure Eyes protect. I'm mega chilling, and battle phase. This is just yeah, this is too much. To reset the Majesty, Witch comes back. Had to attack again with Tyrant, attacks all monsters, and yeah, opponent is out of there. So round number 1, a decisive 2-0 with Blue Eyes. Some rough hands on our White Force opponent's part, but that just shows once Blue Eyes has control of the game, it holds on to it very tightly. All right, round number 2. And before we get into this round, a quick, I guess, a secondary reminder that to be kind to everyone watching, my opponents here said they were a new player just starting in December, and they were learning Fire King still. So I will obviously point out some plays they could have made that'll be better, but be kind. And with that, let's get into the game. So I roll a fantastic 12 and get to start off this game, but in classic Blue Eyes fashion, I immediately pass. So now our opponent's gonna have 6 cards and essentially going first to the battle phase. Obviously a rough sign. Opponent starts off with Witch, and I'm thinking, damn, is this just like a White Forest locals or something? Why are there so many witches? Though obviously this could be played in other decks as well. I set Subversion, not something unexpected, and almost Volcanics, meaning actually playing versus like a old Snake Eye Fire King deck just without original. Ash and Volcanics though is an immediate reaction for me as someone who's played this deck. I know that's a card you 100% Ash. Volcanics is a fantastic card. It does open up a Hida line though, so opponent goes for Hida into Princess, and then Princess revive, and then attacks and calls it a turn. Now they said later they should have gone Amber Whale. I do agree, although truthfully versus me it's not super important. See, I'm sitting with a Mausoleum in my hand there again. Game 1 both rounds is a bit of a shame. And I'm pretty sure I drew Engine here because it did give me somewhat of a play. I'll see that it didn't set Majesty on turn 1. It's in my hand right there, and obviously not the card I drew for turn. Now the reason I don't set Majesty there is to bluff Mulch Armies and just kind of hide as much information as possible. There's some chance that the Majesty is a card I want to use on my next turn to push through a field. There's also a pretty good chance to just die as a result of the opponent playing, having an easy SP play or I guess in this case, a Kieran play. So I'm pretty happy with leaving it on hand. There is merit to either setting it or just holding it. So yeah, Maiden for True Light is the obvious first play here. If there is a Skyburn, which very easily could happen, given that Volcanics is left on the field, sucks for me. However, I have no choice. If I pass into a Princess on field, I'm dead. So I decide to just set Wishes instead, or do go for the Wishes play and just hope it all pans out. Yeah, so let's resolve, and I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'm in the clear. I should have Engine, Sage, and Roar now. I have two forms of Engine. The Jet's in the grave. Once the Blue Eyes will be in the grave, I'll also have that live. And this matchup, in theory, could be interesting because where they have Garunix, I have Jet Dragon, and the Jet Dragon protects from destruction and bounces. It may actually become an interesting grind, depending on how it develops. Blue Eyes out, and that'll let me revive the Maiden. And then I get to Synchro. Now, I wasn't really sure what to expect here. I would have expected the Skyburn to come down onto the True Light, but having nothing happen there, I didn't have a good read on my opponent's back rower. I figure either way, though, Spirit Dragon is a fantastic card in this matchup because obviously they can dodge targeting and just be a good monster to have overall. But also, it just negates graveyard effects. So versus Fire King, that's obviously huge. Mausoleum bumps up to 33, so it can attack over anything. And then also puts a second Blue Eyes in grave for the Majesty I have in my hands to be a good form of disruption. Now I normal the Sage here, get to keep playing. I grab Veiler. Opponent could still have Kieran in theory from last turn, but I doubt it because I could have made grander field with or done a lot more with Kieran plus Volcanics. Yeah. And I feel like I didn't need more follow-up at this point. I was relatively safe. Yeah, so I negate the Volcanics' graveyard effect, and then I use the Jet Dragon to bounce the Princess back instead of killing it. I decide that it's better there than in the grave, because if I try summon off of Spirit Dragon on their turn for Ultimate Spirit, I don't want to have to deal with Princess. Yes, I have the Neoblaze Ultimate in grave, but I don't want to have to burn it on a Princess. I'd rather have him go through the effort of summoning it again before, dealing with that. I pass back over, and at this point, I feel very comfortable. 2 spirits for the grave effects, as well as for the tag outs. As well, I follow up. I have Jet, Veiler in hand. Now we're in a winning spot. Majesty. Subversion, which I knew was there, is fine. It forces the tag out. I go for the Ultimate Spirit for the Omni Negate instead of the Azure Eyes. That's maybe a little debatable, but still not a huge commitment on my end. And then Bonfire comes down next. So yeah, this kind of does indicate that, okay, there are for sure Snake Eye cards mixed here together. Now, I wasn't fully sure to what extent that meant, if there was Temple in the deck, if there was just Subversion. It gets Poplar, though, which could mean another normal summon is incoming instead of a Snake Eye Ash play. Poplar grabs Temple, and then Temple gets activated. So, okay, there is Temple there. I decide that I maybe want to stop this with Poplar's Majesty, because Temple's just good in a grind game, and I'm trying to avoid that from happening. As well, Snake Eye Ballstar could be good at forcing out my disruptions. And setting up a Snake Eyes Doomed Dragon, if that's a card in this deck, which I imagine it would be. The extra deck is not too tight for this Fire King deck anymore. Just lets me pop the Unknown back row, which would be good to know, as well as the Temple, and stop any of those shenanigans where he gets to place my cards in small trap card zone. So here I'm just explaining to my opponent how Majesty does not target, a very nice aspect of the card, where if the opponent chains what we later find out is a circle of Fire Kings, they would not get, or would destroy whatever gets summoned, which is pretty nice. Opponent from this position normal summons a Snake Eye Ash, so that's ironic. They probably drew the Bonfire turn with an Ash in their hand. And now this means it really doesn't do that much. Ash grabs Oak and then sacks them off, trying to set up a Flame Burge, and Ash Blossom in the hand quickly chucks that off. So no concern for me. Very simple game. Matter of just getting the engine across the line, but once we did, we were good. Opponent starts off with normal summon Ponix, and here I take a moment to ponder. My hand is Effect Failure and Impermanence. As you can see my hand there, I think I had True Lights. I'm not sure what the spell was. Oh, the spell was Roar, I'm pretty sure, and an Nibiru. Again, very, very much lacking engine. Anyways, so versus Fire King, it can feel very risky to Imperm and Veiler their card. It's can either be excellent or terrible, because if they have the Fire King Kieran, it can dodge it. However, because I had Veiler and Impermanence, I was okay using Imperm as a way to hit the Ponix, because if there was a Kieran, I could still Veiler the Ponix and it wouldn't resolve unless there was a call by or crossout. And I lead with Imperm over Veiler for a couple reasons. There's the argument to holding Imperm, because Imperm can be used on my turn, as well as it's the better card. So in theory, it's better to save. However, why I don't hold it here is Veiler is actually better in this deck to use on your own turn, as not for effects, but you can synchro with it. You can normal summon it and make Spirit and search the Mausoleum. If my Imperm makes any bit of their hand dead, like say they drew 2 Talons, which well, not the most likely thing in the world, can very easily happen, then it means that I can actually reasonably get back to my turn, hit out the True Light, and then engage in a game that I can win. So this Emperor comes down and gets to have the cross out. And this tells me, or should tell me, there's no Kieran. I don't expect the cross out to be used before Kieran. So I do chain the Veiler still. If there's a Kieran at that point, then got my ass. But thankfully, nothing happens, and opponent does just end there. I draw for turn, and I'm pretty sure I drew another hand trap here, and I kind of think for a moment. I'm in a weird predicament. My only engine card is True Light, and Fire King decks, at least right now, and I don't remember exactly Dinkabui's list, but I'm expecting multiple Skyburners to be in people's decks. And with 2 stack cards, Island wasn't activated, Sanctuary wasn't activated. The best way for him to get back into his engine if he doesn't have Volcanics in hand is to have Ponix die and get added back. And if Skyburn is face down, me setting a True Light into the Skyburn cuts off my engine, lets him go +1, and gets his engine back in rotation. And that's something that I really don't want to happen. So I'm wanting to see if I can force out him to burn more cards before committing anything, or draw into more engine before playing the True Light. This is different from game 1, where if I left the board state the way it was, I'd be screwed to the princess. Now if I pass, there's no telling that he'll be able to play. So yeah, I decide that instead of setting True Light here, I'm going to pass here and just be patient. Just take me a moment to kind of think about this, but I decide it's ultimately safe. So my opponent thinks for a second here, as they have 1 new card in their hand, and they make an interesting and cool play that actually lets them play, or lets them get back into their engine. They link off their Ponix and roll for a Phoenix, and then they activate the what's called Circle to pop the Phoenix and revive the Ponix. And then they also either drew the Droll or they drew the Grunix, but that gets them trigger the Grunix as well, and they get to cycle through their engine pretty handily. This lets them grab Sanctuary of Neck to hand, and then Grunix gets to affect the pop, popping in Volcanics. Volcanics then special summoning from the deck, the Grunix. Now, not wanting to have a Photon Lord dropped in me, and thanks to the summon of Phoenix, this being summon number 5, I decided to Nibiru here. This means that if they want to get back into Fire King cards, then they can go Sanctuary Island, pop their token. Something I would have to deal with, because then Skyburn will be back live again, but still, I decide that it is worth it here, because this makes it more manageable. And ironically, I did get further confirmation my opponent did have Skyburn face down, because you can see that they looked at it. They were actually about to activate it, then said, wait, I can't use this, you control no cards. Which would kind of confirm with me that the Skyburn was the card that's face down there. Now, my opponent activates the Island Sanctuary and doesn't use it immediately, which I do think is a mistake, because you want to set up follow-up from their perspective. I didn't play in the last turn. My engine is clearly not too powerful. Ironically here, I get to go Mausoleum, dump Blue Eyes on Nibiru to make it bigger than the token, and then I get to attack over it. If it's just special Blue Eyes from the deck, and I really cannot do too much in this position. I think I have another Roar of the Blue Eyes in hand. I set that in the True Light face down and pass, because now if there's the Skyburn face down, it's not going to be usable straight away. And it means that I'll at least get 1 True Light activation. Opponent draws Ash Return and then pops with Island. They should not normal summon it here, but it's not the biggest deal. Adds Kieran, and then Garunix gets to come back, and this is a problem because obviously there's not much I can do. As well as if Kieran does pop a card here, then I will have to deal with that potentially hitting the True Light. And then goes for Grunix to nuke the field, which to me, not really a problem. I just double check that it targets face down cards, so I know what card is popped. If he targets the True Light, I can chain it. And then decides to go for Grunix effect to destroy Spell Trap. Goes after the set card that does hit the True Light, which is frustrating. So I do chain the True Light here to set, give myself some follow-up, but obviously with Skyburn, it is a bit of a problem. I set Wishes, and something actually kind of weird happens. My opponent then Skyburns to pop the Wishes, which makes sense because it's follow-up. And now you could have also popped the True Light and it would have been essentially the same thing. And it ends up coming back later, where me putting the True Light in the grave matters, because this entire game I really lack access to my my light level 1 tuners. You could, the face on card that I have that's a bluff right now is another Roar. Roar here at 3 really didn't end up being the most impactful engine card. So Grunix gets revived off of Grunix, gets to swing for 27. Or no, if it swings for 27, then main phase 2 summons Kieran. I guess the point of this is to revive the Grunix in the standby phase, which pops the Kieran. I do think it's better to be patient and not jump the gun here. Still in the standby phase, my opponent revives the monsters. And then revives Arvada and Garunix. Doesn't activate the Grunix effect, one of the save cards in deck. I think forgot to pop with Kieran as well, which is obviously pretty bad for them because I have the face down Roar. So I bring back the Blue Eyes and then I get to go for Tyrant. Now Tyrant attacks everything here, so as long as there's no second Grunix in their extra deck, it actually attack everything. So I summon it out. And now I get to go Kraken. First I attack the Grunix, then I attack the Arvada. Arvada gets to revive something, and I don't really care, whatever revives can summon, so decides to not revive anything anyways. Should revive Ponix though, just so that it comes back when it in the standby phase, because it's more follow-up, because again, I can't kill here still. Attack the Grunix though. Grunix can summon from deck, but without him having a fire to pop with Volcanics, doesn't mean anything, so it doesn't summon anyways. Again, I can attack whatever he summons. I reset, and then move to the end phase. Opponent draws for turn, but passes immediately over, and at that point, the game should be back in my control. The Tyrant Dragon can just take control, or just give me enough value to win the game. I draw Maiden for turn here, and my opponent has about 5,000 life points, so I decide instead of using Maiden for True Light and playing into Ogre, I'm just going to Maiden for Spirit, revive the Blue Eyes, then revive Maiden, still under 5 summons, can't get into Beard, attack twice, and it's game, and if I get Bishul to stay alive, main phase 2, send Maiden off, put back the True Light, and that'll establish a healthy grind game for me. So we are able to take game number 2. A game that truthfully probably would have been lost should our opponents have played a little bit better. But that's how Yu-Gi-Oh goes. Sometimes it involves playing better than your opponents. That being said, it was kind of clear here that the multiple roars were not very helpful. They were very fake engine, and they didn't really contribute to me pushing through fields. Didn't really help to me accessing my power cards. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the 3 roars right now. Moving on to round number 3, and I rolled a nice 11, which means I get to go first again, especially to my opponent's Snake Eyes. So pretty lucky with those die rolls here. And I start off the turn with Wishes, discard Blue Eyes, and get Purge, not even Ashed, which feels mega bad, and I have to pass. I definitely don't love that. I'm passing a lot with this deck. Opponent activates Lord, and I manage to blow it up with the quickness. My hand is not good, I have no engine. If my opponent gets an infinite grind going, then I'm screwed. Opponent uses Wishes, discard Load, and I Ash it. Now, you can see my opponents are here. There's actually Ogre and Veiler. This is an important lesson. When your opponent has no engine, you have to value follow-up, sometimes more than disruption. From my opponent's perspective, I think they should have either kept Ogre or got rid of Ogre or Veiler in their hand and kept the load. They had a follow-up play next turn, because if I drew dead again next turn, they'd be fine. I draw for turn, and I can't remember what I had here. Oh, I go Dragon Shrine to send. And of course, Dragon Shrine here is not actually that good. It just sends the Jet Dragon to grave and dumps the Blue Eyes. And then I Ultimate Fusion. Oh, Ultimate Fusion here was actually pretty good because it lets me summon out the Tyrant Dragon. Tyrant, let me send Majesty, will be good value. So before the battle phase, though, my opponent does activate on Tyrant, so I'm not going to be able to reset. Very kind of shit value use of cards, but it's just to show that like cards in Ultimate Fusion can be used outside of the normal kind of applicability to find something good. When my opponent draw Blue Eyes there, that's so bad. Oh, it's a spell card. Oh, it's Roar. Okay, that doesn't do much. Yeah, so you can see here, if my opponent had a Lord instead of this hand trap in their hand, they'd be so much better off. I think they forgot they can make Tyrant Dragon the spell in the grave, the Wishes. Otherwise, that would have been better. Draw Shrine to Grand, so I get to put the Jet Dragon back in the grave, for whatever that's worth. And at this point, I do feel very good. Like, Majesty is super good in this grind. If Veiler's again, he has no cards left. I get to revive back the Jet as well. I just forgot. That's pretty bad. No excuse why I didn't revive Jet on the attack there. Still pass over, and my opponent just concedes. I gave him one extra draw though. That was a mistake. I definitely feel like I had the game if I just revived the Jet the first turn. Game number 2 starts off, and again with not much to side deck, I just keep my deck the same. Opponent starts off with Lordy Load, and that's obviously a bit rough because these are cards I don't have. Drill Beam is very good. I can see a Persian in their hand as well, another fantastic card. Normal summons the barrel other though and doesn't use it, which wasn't really sure why. I assume maybe it already has all his targets, so I imperm the Spirit. I don't think I get access to Blue Eyes cards. They already have Maiden. I feel okay about this though, thankfully, because I already have Ghost Ogre. But that means I'm not Ghost Ogre and Lordy Load, and it also means that they can still call Blue Eyes off Lordy Load and then revive Maiden. Their engine is still relatively flowing. I'll have to push in the next turn. So yeah, special summon off Blue Eyes, and then Maiden gets to come back. The thing here though is in the make Spirit, there's a chance they can't make their Drill Beam live, which is good to know. And my opponent just sets one card face down and pass. Like they kept the Drill Beam in their hand. Now I do have 4 cards in hand here. Start off with Sage and get hit with a Purge. Purge here completely destroys me because they have a trap in their grave. So not only did my Sage not get the Surge, now I can't even threaten further plays with what's it called, with Spirit. And I think I had another Impermanent Hand, which doesn't do too much, so I said and pass. But if my opponent plays Lightning Storm Dragon here and pops my back with Lightning Storm, then I switch everything. End phase, they do that. They pop both. They have Lord still. They have probably in the Lord loaded hand, given they didn't search one last turn. They have Other Barrel coming back. I know I'm screwed, so I just wrap this one up quickly and go to game number 3. Game 3. Normal summon Seahorse, go into the Spirit Dragon, and try set up the 1-card combo. An Impermed on Spirit, though, so I have to debate what I'm going to send here. I believe at this point I have Jet Dragon already in hand, and no way to summon Blue Eyes. So not wanting to deprive myself of a good draw, I send Blue Eyes instead. This is still good to have in grave, though, because I have a Psalm Strike in hand. If my opponent normal summons a Sage or a Barrel and gets striked and has to pass there, means my Spirit lives, importantly. That happens. My opponent normal summons Sage, uses the effect, and I get to strike it. Similar to how he popped in my normal summon as well and negated it. It doesn't make the situation very hard for him. Now, I do have to think for a moment after the strike resolves if I want to use Jet Dragon from the hand. I decide that it's not worth giving away information to use the Jet Dragon here. I'd rather bluff that I have something else. As well as if I have to use the other cards in my hand, I want to have a good discard live for a potential Wishes. My opponent then goes Wishes and decides to discard Effect Veiler, and I Ash Blossom that, feeling pretty comfortable. Talent Draw 2, though, is scary. Still are a fair bit of cards that stop me there. Thankfully, just sets when it passes, though, so feeling happy with that. Now, into the next turn. I still don't have too much going on for me. All right, so getting into the next turn now. I do Wishes Return, which is fantastic, because now I have Engine to try and push through this. I first start off with Spirit to provide Blue Eyes to test the water, see if it'll draw out any interaction points. As well as doing this means if I get stopped now on the Wishes, I can use the Wishes Graveyard effect and go Tyrant. It means that if he had any ability to stop a Spirit from resolving with like a Call By, that window is passed for them. And then I get to reset Strike, which was very good last turn and probably very good next turn as well. Now, given that I had 2 fresh draws off of talents, there's not much information I have on the last 2 cards in his hand. I know that the 1 card in his hand he deemed more valuable than an Effect Veiler, because he discarded off Wishes. The other 2 cards, no clue. And then once I'm set up with that and can play on traps, I normal Sage, get the Maiden, and try to go for that push. Now, obviously, I'm still concerned about Ghost Ogre. I always will, as part of why Jet is played in this deck. And I want to make sure that I get the value off a Tyrant before committing to it, so I am not going to just jam the effect here. I'm going to chill. And this means not pushing for an incredible amount of damage or lethal. I'm just going for value here. And then I use True Light to revive, and it's all good. Bring back the Maiden. 3,000 more. Okay, cool. This is my opponent pretty low, meaning in the future I can go for game. And then I just link up into Erratic Seal. I get Mausoleum in the process. Mausoleum can then target the Maiden, trigger the Maiden, and the Blue Eyes, making Majesty better as well for the future, as well as get cards in my deck, and then make Spirit. So here I end on now Seal plus Spirit. I have the strike face down, and that feels pretty good, and my opponent concedes there. Pretty happy with how I played that as well. The strike is super valuable here, and this kind of showed how good it can be. Not even just on my end, but remember, even though I didn't get striked in game 2 on my Sage, I got purged, which did the exact same thing that strike would have. So it really kind of reaffirms my theory that those cards are really good here. And then we didn't get to see him reset it with Tyrant. He didn't really need to, but in my case, me being able to reset it with Tyrant does give me a lot of backup. Still, the job's not done. We have 1 round to go, and let's see if we can win this locals. All right, getting into the last round, and I lose this die roll, so we go an even 2-2 in die rolls. Pretty average night. I guess my high rolls, though, were 11 and 12, which are pretty crazy. And we go second, which is fine. Again, pretty comfortable with that. Opponent starts off, though, with a Mimighoul monster, Mimighoul Archifiend. A very cool card. And I do know these cards pretty well, although I did have to read my opponent's cards just a little bit to make sure that I wasn't messing up. And then my opponent normal summons a second Archifiend, targeting my set 1. Flipping it up, now Archifiend would rip a card from my hand and let him draw. I have a Blue Eyes that would be a good discard for it, but still, I want to Ash this because it also stops the Archifiend going back to my opponent, denies them the draw, it replaces the discard, and also denies them the monster that would turn into rank 1 for them. And importantly, because they've already committed the normal summon now, it means that Dragon's not a card they have access to that easily. It requires them to go kind of out of their way in order to access it, and that's one of the best powerhouse cards in the deck. Opponent immediately exceeds for the Mimighoul Throne, or the Giant Mimighoul, grabs the Mimighoul Room from deck to hand, so they have the Book of Moon Trap. I sent one face down and call it a turn. So here I'm just kind of aligning myself with remembering what the Mimical cards do. I do remember mostly what they do, but to make sure that it wasn't like a fast effect on the giant Mimical. Anyways, from this position, I do need to just keep a couple things in mind. For one, they can deny me a normal summon if I control a set monster. So if a normal summon needs to be the first action I do, I'll need to make sure I have a way to remove any set monsters I have given to me off of room or monster I have that's booked. Or I have to pop the field spell. Now, popping the field spell is still good anyways, because it does also stop their follow-up. Now the first action I do is Roar, because what that's going to do is turn on my Ultimate Fusion in the hand. Ultimate Fusion in the hand will act as a way to pop the throne. You see I give it a quick read here to see if it has to pop face-ups or face-downs. Room here doesn't target though, so it's important that if I chain Fusion, he gets to book the Tyrant. I decide that, okay, I can still deal with this, so I'm going to just chill and not pop just yet. I have a Blue Eyes in my hand as well, so I can still freely move around this. And this is where he wants to use his Book of Moon, then honestly it's not a big deal for me. I'll just chill. Now, with the early use of Room, it kind of could indicate two things to me. It could mean that he really wants to stop a normal summon, or has a Droll and Lockbird in hand, and wants to get the searches out of the way as soon as possible. So this thing I will be on my keeping a little bit of caution about. That being said, I don't really have much choice here. Wishes is the logical next play. If there's an Ash Blossom, it has been unfortunate, but thankfully it resolves. And I grab cards that can cut off his follow-up the next turn, just in case there is Droll, and Droll does come down. Still with Maiden and Majesty though, and the Majesty having 2 pops, I am still big chillin'. I'm not really concerned from this point. Anyways, yes, I get to Maiden, place the True Light. Here I'm just checking if I could use the fusion effect of the Roaring Grave the same turn. You cannot. It does have to be in what's it called? Different turn. You can't use both effects on the same turn, importantly. I'm just debating here what the best play is. I can still set off True Light, or I can Revive. Decided to go for the Revive instead, kind of just building up the field. And I'm looking at here if I want to go into a Lightstorm Dragon as a way of popping this Mimical dungeon. Now, once I get the Blue Eyes and the Maiden out, I am kind of in the clear in terms of establishing engine. And now, how do I crack my opponent's field and stop their engine? Now, an important thing to remember is that Mimical Dungeon stops my guys from attacking the turn unsummoned. So if I want to get through this, I will have to either kill it or pop the cards in their field. And Blue Eyes has limited removal. So first, use Wishes to equip the Blue Eyes Ultimate, stop targeting. Then I trade up into Lightstorm Dragon to pop the dungeon so I can use the battle phase. Opponent chains Veiler, but thankfully I can dodge that with Ultimate Fusion, which I was planning to do anyways. So I get the Ultimate Fusion here to chain and fuse away the Lightstorm. I shuffle back the Blue Eyes face down on the field, I think, instead of the one on in my graveyard, because the face down Blue Eyes actually isn't very good. You don't get a pop with it for Ultimate Fusion. Does have to be face up, but still the Tyrant resolving, or the Lightstorm resolving and popping the dungeon is good enough, because then the Tyrant can attack everything, and that's all I needed to do. It clears his follow-up, and now he has no cards left, or he has 1 card, just the dungeon in hand, into my Majesty and top decking. And I have my follow-up kind of stable, so I'm not concerned. Normal summon of dungeon uses normal summon activates dungeon, and I use Majesty to pop it onto the effect, so can't use it again. And with nothing else, that is game 1. Opponent starts off with set 2 and pass, which obviously is not great. And I do have engine. I have Dragon trying to start off with. It's a good thing to set up first, as it's just putting Jet Dragon in grave can be very good in running games, especially when your opponent just has no playable cards. Dragon Shrine gets ashed, which I don't think is very good, but I'll take it. Normal Sage and gets purged. My opponent here is desperately trying to keep me off of engine. So now with Purge and Ash used, I slam down Wishes. And that should have no way of stopping besides a Judgment. I probably should have made my Link 1 here. No, I was playing around Droll. I'm playing around Droll here because we know that's in their deck. And I don't want to make the Link 1 into Droll. I want to prioritize getting True Light up. I discard the Majesty, gets to place the True Light. Now from here, I think is when I should be linking. Unless I want to go for Synchro. I don't think I do. Yeah, now I link because I've showed there's no Droll there. I get to search. Grab the Mausoleum. Active Mausoleum, and I get to now dump from deck to grave a Blue Eyes, establishing that in the grave. Contributes to Revive. And, just get the resource cycle going that we were talking about. At that point, my opponent Ghost Spells these spirits, so I lose access to that. With only 1 card in the hand, 1 card face down. I decide to just True Light. If it gets ogred, then well. Opponent just decides to concede there, knowing that it's a losing battle for them. But it means we were 4-0, and we won today's locals. Ironically, I played versus Zero, Malice, and Rizel, which I built my deck for. I mean, that happens in some locals, especially given that it's not always the utmost competitive environment. But we were still able to win, and it's not like I played versus all bad decks or anything. They're just maybe not Rizel or Malice level. Still, I have to make sure that I prepare for those decks, as well as it means that I have to be careful with conclusions I draw from this event. That being said, I still can learn stuff from here. For one, we already talked about a Dragon Shrine. Didn't do what I thought it did going into the tournament. Something I have to reassess in my deck, as well as 3 Roars, something that didn't feel great. Now, the deck does have somewhat of an ability to brick, but I think just removing Dragon Shrines and the Roars without replacing them is a mistake. You need to find alternate consistency cards to make up for it. Now, part of why I liked Dragon Shrine, though, was utility. It wasn't just Engine, in theory. It was supposed to be Engine with Maiden, or utility for going second with Jet Dragon. So if I can find something that can mirror that, that'd be awesome. Then maybe a tall ask, but that's what I'm looking for. A couple of options that come to mind immediately. I could play more normal summons like Mathematician, like I do in Masterduel. It can give me more consistency. It might be better than Roar, because there were a couple times where I just passed. It was pretty obvious here. And the normal summon problem isn't as bad in this deck because Sage has a hand effect, as well as Moslin gives you 2 summons. It'd really only be competing with normal summons with like your Seahorse. Another option is Piri Reyes map, paying half your life to search a Sage. I don't love this one as it's worse than the draw, as well as paying half your life when your hand is kind of awkward and you're playing a grinding game. It gives your opponent the ability to be more aggressive or to force out your disruption points early. So life points actually can be a big deal here, and I'm not thrilled about that. Now, one other thing that I'm considering, and this is the one I'm actually probably leaning towards the most, but I'll keep testing in future locals and events, is Pot of Extravagance. Now, this seems weird, but it's simple. This deck plays in actually a very similar manner to the Fire King deck that Wise System Kabui played, where your turn ones are not broken, but they're good. Your grind game is fantastic, but your deck lacks a bit of consistency and it has some wonky bricks in the deck. Still, a lot of the wonky bricks still have uses when you draw them, like Majesty, or Ultimate Fusion, or Jet Dragon. Extravagance worked great in the deck because it kind of meant when you drew those shitty brick cards, you give them an engine to work alongside, and then they become playable, as well as it gives you deck more consistency. It's also a +1, which really complements the idea of a grind deck playing for value. Now, the reason not to play Extravagance is obviously the main downside. Banish 6 cards from your extra deck randomly. And that's a big problem for a lot of decks. But I actually don't think it's that big of a deal for Blue Eyes. Like, go back and watch my replays here. You actually don't summon from the extra deck that much. You would play a 3rd Spirit, Link 1, for sure. But like the Lina, Access Code, Celine stuff, I feel myself like never using. Tyrant Dragon is a card that's impressed me a lot. So I think I probably would still play 3 of that card if I am playing Extravagance. But that is on my next kind of task, or next thing to look at with this deck. I'm going to see if I can fit on those Extravagances instead, and then use the rest of the extra space as some sort of other engine. Now, looking for other cards that can fit the budget mold and also be good in multiple ways is Magnamut. It is like $5, so I kind of avoided it, but $5 won't break the bank, and I can still stay under $20 budget if I play it. Magnamut will act as disruption versus a lot of decks right now, as well as can search the Kaiser Seahorse to access your Blue Eyes plays, which pretty good. And then lastly, it's the side deck. I still have to wonder if I need to have more generic cards in my side deck, as well as if I need this many going first cards. Going first, when I got to play, felt pretty good. Although I really liked how the trap cards like Strike and Judgment complement Tyrant Dragon. It made me win more, and I may be kind of overreacting to that powerful synergy, and not doing what I say to do, and that is to find the problems the deck has and solve it. And if Blue Eyes isn't struggling going first, I shouldn't force more cards and then make it better going first. And that's going to be some of my homework now, is to figure out what side deck cards may be better suited to fit this deck. But alas, that is it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and let me know if you have any other ideas for how to make this budget Blue Eyes deck better. I'm excited for the journey ahead with this deck. I've actually been really enjoying Blue Eyes, and even besides the budget portion, I think it's a lot of fun, and I recommend you guys pick it up. It doesn't have to budget if it's not a constraint for you, but it is absolutely worth your time and effort to learn. So go and get your Blue Eyes cards, and we'll embark on this journey together. I'll see you guys all next time.